Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Product Club. We are spoiling you all massively. Normally, we say Product Club comes once a month, but I think, crikey, we're on almost Product Club 3 so far in Pathfinder Summit. So I hope you're enjoying it so far, and this promises to be another amazing edition of Product Club 2. So, for those of you that are new to Product Club, it's a normally monthly, virtual meetup that focuses on Automation Anywhere's latest product innovations. So, it offers a place for the community members to stay informed and connect with some of our senior product leaders here at Automation Anyway. And it's a great way to gain insights into the latest innovations in the world of intelligent automation, as well as agentic process automation too. So let's get some audience participation going. Please post in the chat where you're joining from, what you've enjoyed about Pathfinder Summit so far as well, and what you're still looking forward to. This is a great way to network as well, so make sure you've got your LinkedIn details updated in your profile too. So throughout this presentation, feel free to throw questions into the chat, but we have a specific Ask the Speaker section as well. So please post in there if there's anything directly relating to the presentation that you'd like us to answer, and we will do our best to do it. Now, before I hand over to my esteemed guest, let's set the scene for the topic of discussion today. So we probably all know that feeling of an automation going down in production, that kind of bottom of the stomach, kind of churning feeling you get when a business user's told you something's gone down or it's not working as expected. I remember going to the head of finance for one customer I was working with to try and explain to them what happened, anticipating the questions of, why does it work in UAT in testing and not in production? Or what was the point of testing if this has happened? So if only we had Automation Anywhere and the generative AI recorder back then. So I'm very excited for this session to introduce to you the AI capabilities that we have in the product, so you can learn how to reduce production failures by 50%, speed up your development potentially by 30%, and automatically create accurate automations from PDDs. Crikey, if we had that years ago, the wrinkles and the stress lines on my face probably would not be present whatsoever. So it is with great excitement today that I welcome to the stage Nishi. Nishi, please introduce yourself and let's get cracking on Product Club.
Absolutely. That's a great setup, Ollie. Thank you for that. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Nishikant from the product management. I primarily lead the developer experience and other set of tools that helps developers, including the ones based on generative AI, the latest innovations in that space. And my goals for FY26 are to help our customers and partners like you to evolve from our traditional task-based automation to agentic process automation. And with that, as Ollie said, in today's session, we are going to focus on how we can use advanced AI also in the hands of developers.
And I'll just quickly do the safe harbor statement as well. So this presentation will include some forward-looking statements and features about our product and vision. So we're super excited about these possibilities, but I want to remind everyone that the actual development and release timing of some of the content that we'll be going through today obviously remains at Automation Anywhere's discretion. So think of this as a glimpse into our thinking and where we see agentic process automation headed. But with that being said, I think a lot of the stuff we'll be going through today actually exists in the product today and you can use right away. But that being said, there will be some things that don't. So back to you, Nishi.
All right. Thank you, Ollie. Well, we'll go straight away. All right. I'm thrilled to be here actually because I am going to showcase how we're leveraging or how we're elevating the developer productivity to a whole new level, right? We'll show you how we are accelerating development with generative AI and enabling them to build agentic process automations. And as a result, drive exponential returns on automation. Today, customers face several challenges. I'm sure all of you would agree because there are challenges ranging from limited development resources, due to skill sets or just the manpower, and the time it takes to create a pipeline of opportunities and ideas for automations, and also the cost it takes to build these automations, right? With all of these challenges, we understood what the pain points of our customers are, and this is why we have introduced Automator AI, which goes across the automation lifecycle to accelerate the process discovery from months to weeks, as well as build the automations faster by at least 30% and make automations 50% more resilient to mitigate the impact to your business outcomes and drive up your return on automations. Automated AI is powered by our natively trained LLMs that are built using a rich metadata from over 300 million automation runs. That's a huge number, right? And that is why you'll see all our trained models, AI models, completely grounded to our metadata. Now let's double click into each of these capabilities, right? So we have autopilot, we have copilot for automators, and generative record. So let's look at what each of them do. Well, autopilot is a tool which helps us identify and understand every process. So you can rapidly identify, submit the automation opportunities directly from process discovery into COE manager with all the required details to speed up the review and approval process. And with that, we actually get to maximize the ROI because we are able to prioritize opportunities and deliver the highest business impact easily, assigning these opportunities to developers and automating the creation process. Now, what autopilot does once it gets the opportunities from COE manager or their automation admins is it takes two kinds of inputs. One, it can take the process design document, which is an output from our in-app tool called Process Discovery, a process mining tool, or it can also now take a BPMN file as an input and transform those into the automation outline, right? So you can just imagine the time it saves for you to just discover all the opportunities and convert them into the automations. So you skip a lot of steps. So as I said, you basically bring down your discovery time from months to weeks to just days. And we also have Copilot for automators. So let's say once you have created your automation outline using Autopilot, I'm sure there would be cases where you would want to modify your automations, or you are creating new automations, be it process automations or your regular RPA task bots, right? In any of these cases, now you can accelerate your development because now you can give input or your automation goals in simple natural language. What Copilot for automators does is it takes these instructions that you have given in form of natural language, converts them into automation on the screen. So you can just imagine the number of clicks and scrolling that you would have to do, and also trying to convert your requirement into the exact steps of automation. All that now comes down to just simple instructions, and these instructions are then broken down and converted into your automation. And it also provides other AI-powered recommendation engine, which can suggest to the next set of actions. For example, let's say you're building your automation and you're stuck at any point of time on what could be the next set of steps. Well, don't worry. You have a recommendation engine which actually understands the context of your automation and gives you the next set of best actions that you can fit in there. And it's always a choice for you whether you would want to pick those suggestions or you skip those suggestions, right? And Copilot for automators is something that we are continuously enhancing as in when we get the latest and greatest of AI models in the industry. We actually take that, see what is the best of the breed, and take all its best abilities and capabilities within the Copilot for automators. Today, you can convert your instructions into all the different packages and actions. In future, we'll also be supporting for you to have a recorder-based action. So if you have UI-based automation, even those you could automate using Copilot for automators, and also expand to vision models in future. I'm sure most of you would have heard about Claude and other things, other LLMs, where they have been bringing a lot of vision models. So based on that, also we will have UI-based automation just based on the natural language. Now, the third one is, well, you have built the automations quickly, you have also pushed it to production, but then I'm sure you would face challenges just because these are UI-based automations and the applications do undergo change, right? That is where generative recorder comes into play. It helps you build resilient, self-healing UI-based automations and reduces the downtime by up to 50%. So when the source application interfaces change due to any updates or whatever changes that the SaaS application has pushed it, the generative AI identifies those changes and updates the automation in real time. Here again, we are continuously enhancing the vision models that are used and also have many more fallbacks. So today we have generative AI based fallback. We also have vision model powered fallback and also other richer capabilities that we will have in this product. Now, we have seen all of these in slides. What I'll do is I'll quickly jump onto a live demo and show how exactly these three capabilities work and how it's going to make your life easy. I'm going to switch my screens, just a moment. All right, I think you can see my screen. Ollie, I just need a confirmation that you're able to see my Chrome browser.
Yep, looking all good.
All right, thank you. Well, as I said, there are several challenges. Now, how do we get to develop and build automations much faster, right? So here we are. So here we have an automation admin who has already uploaded a BPMN file for order management. And I'm sure you would agree that in a typical process, if you had to convert an order management end-to-end business process into an automation, or rather I would say series of automations tied together, then it would take at least a few weeks because the developers have to coordinate within their team and they would have to understand the requirements and then convert them into design documents and then get to start developing the automations, right? It's a long, cumbersome and tedious process and also error prone. Whereas here we have the business process already captured in a BPMN file and the automation admin has uploaded it to the control room and assigned it to Marcus, who is a professional developer, and he now has to take this forward and build the automation. Let's see how it works. So, and just to give you a glimpse of what this BPMN file contains, as you see here, so this is the business process of the order management, right? A lot of steps, multiple conditions that need to be taken into consideration, and then have the end-to-end process automation. So here what we'll do is, since Marcus has the capability and permissions to use automated AI, he gets to see a new option called generate automation for a BPMN file. He clicks that and it'll take a few seconds where it's going to read the BPMN file and transform that into automations. As you see here, I'm going to refresh again. So here it has taken the BPMN diagram and transform that into an outline of multiple automations, right? First, we have a process which encompasses all the other steps in form of task bots or any other types of bots. Now, what has happened is Autopilot has taken this BPMN diagram and it has used natively trained AI models. And these models, as I said, have been built or trained using more than 300 million automation runs. So it takes those, it understands what the context of the business process is and converts them into this outline. And the best part is it is able to exactly have the necessary task boards or conditions based on the diagram that we saw. And it can also have necessary APIs or sub-processes based on the complexity and the information that's available in the BPM diagram. So here you see a complete outline of the order management system is created, and all this took is just a few seconds, right? That's the amount of time you save.
I just want to jump in
And
here, Nish, because I think this is super powerful. I typically found that I would be working with business analysts who would put together these beautiful BPM and diagrams, and people in my team, analysts, would then take that and perhaps convert it into a PDD because they needed to understand sort of click level details, and then that would get put into an SDD as well. So you just had chunks of weeks where you'd go from the original mapping, which was always perfect and beautiful from a business analyst perspective, weeks, months before we then started doing anything delivery related, which was just hugely frustrated. So I actually just wanted to quickly launch a poll and get people's views. Where do you think your teams are spending the most time? Crudely, from creating PDDs, SDDs through to doing development and testing. I'd be very interested to know where people see a lot of their time being spent. I feel that now development's almost the easy part. That takes care of itself, but it's it can be the PDDs, perhaps even the SDDs that take the most time. So yeah, give you a couple of seconds to cast your votes. Be great to see.
All
Nishi,
right.
see if you can guess where people are casting their votes. Where do you think people are spending the most time?
Design and testing.
Pretty spot on. Yeah, it's
Oh,
PDD creation is
okay. Wow.
out at front, SDZ, yeah, and then testing is getting them as well.
Wow.
Right, couple more votes to come in, and then I'll close the poll.
And that's an interesting result, Oli, because as we expected, because we always had this feedback that our developers spend a lot of time in understanding the PDDs or creating these PDDs and then converting them to the automation. And I think that's exactly the problem we have solved here with the autopilots.
Yeah, yeah. But I'll just quickly share those results as well. Yeah, obviously not a comprehensive test, but I think it's fair to say at least this was what I felt on the ground as well. That the creation of a PDD was just hugely taxing on everyone. And whilst I would try and set up my team so that there was parallel working, so that if someone's getting part of a PDD done, another person could maybe be thinking of an SDD. But for some processes, that's just not possible at all. You need the bigger picture to really look at everything. But yeah, I think that was very insightful. Thanks everyone for voting. Nishi, back to you.
Yep. Thank you, Oli. Thank you, everyone, for the poll. All right. So as we saw, we used autopilot and we were able to convert the BPMN file into an outline of process as well as all the other task boards that it was requiring, right? Now, let's go and check what kind of task boards it has created. So let me just go back and pick one of them. Now, as I said, our AM models are already trained on the metadata of Automation Anywhere's 300 million runs of automations, right? Now, with that, what happens is it's able to bring in all the best practices. For example, when it has created this task board, it already knows where exactly to add the comments. It knows it has to have the best practices of having exceptional handling or logging, right? So all these are already baked into the AM model. And so even the little amount of time that you would have to spend in making sure all the best practices are already baked in is also taken care of with the autopilot, right? And on top of this, what you can also do is basically once you have done this, definitely at this point of time, Marcus can go ahead and build this in a usual way where you can drag and drop all the necessary actions and packages from here. But what we can also do is basically use the other product called Copilot for Automators. Now, this is an AI-based assistant that's available within the editor. So as you see here, we have a good skeleton here, and I would now want to enhance this by giving the automation goal. So I'm going to give the instructions in form of natural language. Just a moment. All right. So here I am giving an instruction saying I would want the system to connect to Salesforce, read the orders from an Excel sheet, and update each record in Salesforce. Now, at this point of time, what this assistant does is it takes these prompts. And if you see here, this has actually multiple instructions within it, right? So it breaks down this into logical different steps and converts them into the appropriate actions as you see here. So although I said only connect to Salesforce, it knows it has to first create an authentication connection and then it has to update the records, right? So it understands wherever it has to also loop because we said for each record, it knows, okay, it has to actually loop and then update the records. So it has all the necessary intelligence actually to understand the context of the instruction that I've given, as well as it also understands the context based on any additional actions that I may have added already in the bot. So in this case, we have got a nicely built automation. I can further make changes as required. And the best part is the automator AI ensures there is trust, and developers can always depend on it. For example, here it clearly shows the lines where exactly it added the code, and it also asks for feedback. And because Assistant is rendering all the automations in exactly the same editor that we have been using for a few years, what it means is all the policies, like let's say code analysis policies or other best practices that was available within the editor, including the error handling, all that comes by default. So even in this case, we do have Assistant that can actually show you all the code analysis policies, all the issues, and so on. So for example, anything to do with, let's say, mandatory comments or uh, connections that have not been closed, all those issues can also be immediately be flagged through our static code analysis, right? So here we saw how we were able to take a BPMN file so far, convert it into an automation, and continue building on top of it using the Copilot for automators. Well, so far good. Uh, the developers keep building, then they push the automations into the production. But what next? Now that is where the next set of challenges start, particularly for the UI-based automations, as you may have actually experienced over the years. Typically, UI-based automations do undergo failures because of the application changes that you cannot control. For example, you may have created an automation which is logging into Salesforce, as in this case, or it could be Workday or ServiceNow. In any of these cases, and they being a SaaS application, will always undergo changes. And what it means is you hit the failures in production, which means you also would have hit some SLAs, breach of SLAs, or impact on the returns of automation and so on. And by the time you discover that there are failures and you fix it, you've already lost a lot of time. And that is exactly where generative recorder comes into play, because what generative recorder does is it uses the models and actually identifies the exact point of failure when the automation is running. And not just that, apart from identifying the point of failure, it also helps you recover from that failure and continue the automation. So it means it has avoided the failure, plus it will also give you the mechanism to recover and fix it in the long term. And let's see that in action. So we have this particular automation, which is going to log into the Salesforce, give the login details, carry out few steps, and update a record. But let's see how it works if we have not enabled generative recorder. So in this case, let me just quickly show you. So under advanced settings, we have recorder settings. And as you see, I have not checked generative AI based fallback. Let's see what happens when I run this automation. So it's going to take a few seconds. And at this point of time, what we expect is it carries out few steps or actions that we have defined. And at one point of time, we expect it to fail because there is a change in the UI of the application. So here we see it's trying to log into the Salesforce. I'll let it enter the login credentials. And once it logs in, it's again going to carry out a few of the actions that we have defined. And this is where we expect it to fail. Okay, couple of more seconds, and here we are. So it has hit a roadblock, and it says it actually failed because it did not find the element that we had defined as part of the automation, right? And this is something I'm sure many of you would have faced this, particularly with the UI based automations. And this is something that you cannot even control because these applications being SaaS undergo periodic changes. What I'll do is I'll go back to this automation, and this time I'm going to enable the generative AI based fallback. So let me go back, and now let's rerun the automation. All right. So this time, definitely it'll still hit the problem, but it'll also let us know what exactly the problem is, what is the recovery path, and it also will continue to run the automation by auto healing the automation, basically the point of failure. All right, so here it is, a few more seconds. All right, here we are. So as I said, it's exactly finding out the point of failure. So it says what it was not able to locate based on whatever definition we had given. And the best part is it also gives us what is the new path that we should take a look at and fix it. So here I have a choice. I can stop the automation, go back to the automation and fix it, or I can let it continue by auto recovery, right? So it auto heals and continues to run the automation. So in this case, I've let it run the automation by fixing it. Now, obviously, since I'm in a developer mode, I do see the model window that we saw. However, in production cases, it would automatically fix, continue with the automation, and send the admins or the developers a notification that okay, it had found a failure at so and so point of time, and what was the code, and how you could fix that particular failure. All right.
So
So
Nishi, super powerful. And I think
yeah,
anyone that's done any work with, say, a Salesforce or a Workday, sure, they have APIs available, but not comprehensively. So sometimes you have no choice other than to go through the UI. And those elements, I feel Workday almost changes on every time you refresh the page, the element has changed completely. So it's a huge benefit to have something such as this. And also there are a lot of customers for whom actually IT or the application owners don't want to have API access because there's a certain amount of throttling that goes on behind the scenes. So I think this is just a super neat feature. And it's, yeah, as I said at the start of this presentation, I wish I'd have had this years ago. What a savior.
absolutely, Oli, that's correct. And we have got a lot of positive feedback from the customers because, as I said, the 50% number is something that we got from the customers, right? So they have seen almost up to 50% of failure reductions in the UI-based automations, and that's a huge number because it's not just about the time it saves; it also avoids the customers not breaching the SLAs as well as having any negative impact on the business outcome.
I say another thing I used to encounter quite a lot is when we were building automations, we would be given access to a test system, let's say a test version of say an Oracle or an SAP, and I would be told on day one, yes, it absolutely is the same as production, and we would duly go and do 6 weeks worth of work on this test system, and then we'd find we get to production and there's subtle differences. And certainly in the V11 days, we would then actually have to go back and update all of our metabots and object clone from production. Or we'd start building in kind of dual logic. So we'd have an environment flag, which would say, if we're in production, use this DOMX path. If we're not, then use this DOMX path. So you ended up with, I mean, I never like putting environment flags or doing that sort of stuff in a bot, but we just had to, and it would just increase the development time substantially. So, and oftentimes it wasn't like the DOMX path was completely different. It was just a minor element change that generative recorder would have picked up. So yeah, that's another potential use case as well.
True, Ali. So it's also reducing the number of lines of code, as you said. Otherwise, you would have to just have an exception handling for all different kinds of scenarios, and it just increases the size of your automations. All right. So we just saw a live demo where we saw how the order to cash was an automation or a process was developed using automated AI, and it included three areas. As I said, one, we used autopilot, where we could take a BPMN diagram and convert that into outline of multiple automations, including the process automation. And we also saw we could use natural language to give instructions and build the automations, be it process or be it task pods. And third, how do we reduce the failures that we would hit in production, particularly with the UI automations, right? And as I said, and I'll just reiterate again, so we saw a user-centric design at play, which is enabling a seamless flow of work, with which we saw how a generative AI first approach is helping us cut down the discovery phase from months to days. It's driving up to 30% improvement in developer productivity, and our innovative approach to make the automations 50% more resilient. And all of this while saving the COE's time and operational heads and driving the TCO down, right? And I would like to end by emphasizing that all of this makes automated AI a highly differentiated capability in the market, and that's going to help you accelerate your automation development. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Nishi. Really appreciated. We've just answering some questions in the chat. We've had some good ones. Question from Harsh. Is this feature available for on-prem deployments, assuming generative AI recorder? To my knowledge, not yet. It's cloud only right now. We also have a question from Mark. Good to see you, Mark. Hope you're well. What is needed in order to use the AI fallback? Guess I've kind of answered that in that you'll need a cloud version of the product as well, and I believe that's it's also licensed separately too. I'm actually going to paste in the chat as well. We've got a handy page in our documentation which breaks down all of the components in Automation Anywhere and says whether there's a license required, whether they need the cloud, or whether they're on premise as well. So that's a quite handy page that I often refer to because it can be difficult to keep track of where everything's at. So yeah, that's in the chat. And for anyone that's watching this back on a recording and can't see the link to this, it's called Automation 360 Components by License and Deployment. Oftentimes it should be the very when you're on the homepage of the documentation homepage, you should be able to see it there. Perhaps also called feature license maps as well. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Mark, you're on prem. Yeah, I think a lot of our customers are too. So Nishi, I'm really impressed by how Copilot for Automators has improved so much over the last, maybe perhaps it's less than a year that we've had it out for now, but it's kind of blown my mind. What can we expect from that for the rest of the year? I mean, I guess what really highlighted to me was you took a prompt which had multiple actions in it, i.e., I think go into Salesforce and then run this command, and it knew straight away it needed to authenticate with Salesforce, which was incredible. So what else have we got on there, potentially in the pipeline for that?
Yeah. So I'm sure everyone agrees that the AI world, or in generative AI particular, it's evolving every day, right? The art of possible is just enormous, and what we can do in the future also is like changing every day. So what we're doing is, as a strategy, one, we keep improving our models, because end of the day, AI is still not a human, right? So there are chances of error. So we keep training, we keep fine tuning the model so that the percentage of errors come down. It's much more contextual based on the instructions that the customers give. And we're also looking at not just sticking to one model. So if you find a different model in the market which has much more capabilities and is much stronger, so we would be more than open to take that, train them, and take that back into the product. So we are keeping the options open where it's not just one model. We give a choice of multiple models. That is one. And the other one is, as you saw, most of the tasks that we could do today with the Copilot for Automators is the non-UI based actions, correct? Because when you give an instruction saying, hey, log into Salesforce Now, we do have actions and packages, which it understands that it has to pick a Salesforce action, log in, do certain actions. But what if I give an instruction to log into a different application for which we do not have standard packages and actions? Probably the developer was intending to give an instruction so that it could open the recorder, record the different steps, and then build the automation. Now that you may have noticed is not there, but it is definitely part of the roadmap. So that's one of the other big focus areas for the next 12 months. And as I said, all the other areas, including generative recorder, we would have more and more fallback mechanisms. So basically give multiple options that will, I would say, almost encompass all the different scenarios that our customers may be facing today.
Thanks, Nishi. Got a great question from Nathan. Hey, Nathan, hope you're well. Does the generative AI model continuously learn from failed automation attempts in production? And if so, how does it ensure that this learning doesn't introduce new biases or errors?
Right. Well, that's a fantastic question. Because with AI or generative AI, we can never be 100% safe. And I think that's a fantastic question. So here what happens is, in fact, we give a configuration in generative AI where you can decide if you really want the generative AI to take the corrective action by itself, or you would just want it to identify and notify you so that you can take a look at it, do a due diligence, and then fix, right? So even if it is continuously learning, what we do is we give the choice in the hands of the developers or the admins to make a choice on how they would go about, because we do know not every customer, not every developer is going to have 100% faith in the generative AI models, right? That's how the world works. So that is why we give the flexibility in the hands of developers and the admins to take a call whether they would want to look at the suggestions and then make a fix in the automations.
Yeah, that was a particularly awesome question. Thank you. Thank you, Nathan. So I think we'll call time there. Nishi, thank you so much. And a shout out to everyone in the chat. Mark, Harsh, Dharmesh, good to see you. Stephen, who's joined from about 4 a.m. On the east side of the state. So that's how much of a pull it was, Nishi, that Stephen foregoed sleep to be here. So
Thank
appreciated.
you, Steve.
Oh, actually, I say that we've got a quick question from Stephen as well. Let's put this in the chat. Steve says, if I recall correctly, the generative AI recorder was made to work with Azure OpenAI. Anything on the roadmap for, he said, like native Google support, but equally expand that question, say, for any other LLM support?
Yes, yes. So in fact, we are keeping the options open, as I said. In fact, Claude, you may have noticed that Claude has recently released vision models. So we are evaluating those. They're all still in very early stages. They may do some basic steps, but there are still, I would say, good degree of improvement that we expect. But yes, these things change every day. So we are having an open eye on all these models that's coming out in the market, including Google, as you said, and anything that's going to fit the best is going to be taken into the product.
If I recall at the time when we launched this feature, it was very difficult to have anything potentially running in production that might where we would need to potentially send over sensitive information like XPath in a customer application. Like it just wasn't at the time feasible to send that over to an Anthropic or an OpenAI. They just didn't have the necessary policies in place. And actually, around Anthropic Vision, Micah Smith was playing around with that when it first launched. When was that? Maybe a couple of months ago, and it was kind of interesting, but it was noted how expensive it currently is. And I saw they put something on LinkedIn. I think they've just got a new training course related to it. And again, a lot of the comments are, yeah, it's kind of interesting, but it's so expensive. That kind of feedback loop of taking a screenshot, a snapshot, sending it to the LLM then sends a response, the agent does something is, yeah, certainly not cost effective at all. But yeah, promising technology nonetheless. We have a question from Harsh here, actually. Does it, and it being the generative recorder, does it make the correction only on the XBath property of the object, or can it predict the failures and correct other properties like ID and class?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So it does take many other considerations into account, Harsh. So apart from XPath, let's say if you change the label of login ID to username, it'll identify those kind of changes as well. So yes, it in fact tries to find out what are the similar labels or fields in the screen and tries to match to that. And that is why I said it's always also a good choice to where you see the recommendation and then make the changes, right? So it takes multiple things into consideration when it gives the suggestions.
Yeah, hopefully that's answered your question, Harsh, as well. Any other questions before we close? Cool. I think that's it. Well, thank you all, and especially Nishi. Thank you for today and for yesterday. Great insights into all things automation anywhere, and
Yeah,
it's very, very exciting stuff.
thank
Enjoy
you
the rest of your day,
for the
everyone.
audience member. Yeah, thank you, Ollie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.